Hey, everybody. Welcome to House Calls, the podcast, where my acquaintance of over 40 years, Dr. Hugh House, and I talk to different people and learn more about their journey that got them where they are today. I'm very excited for tonight's episode because we're talking to my second cousin, Peyton Heck, who is a graduate of Villanova University. While he was at Villanova, Peyton was a member of two NCAA National Basketball Championship teams in 2016 and 18. That same team won three Big East championships in a row. And it's just a great story. It's a great story because Peyton was a stud high school player and wanted to play at that next level, but early on realized that his size was not gonna allow that to happen. So he went and chose Villanova, which is a great school because he wanted the academics, loved the campus, loved everything about it, and was able to be a walk-on that team. So it's a great story about hearing how you don't have to be the star of the team and log a lot of minutes to be an integral part of that team. So I got a lot out of this. I hope you do as well. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe and enjoy the episode.
Hey, good evening. We're on House Calls, the podcast with Peyton Heck, who is Matt Waldron's first cousin once removed. I think I figured it out.
Wow.
And yeah. And Peyton, please call me Ty. Matt, I'd prefer you still call me Dr. House.
That makes sense. And Peyton, don't call me Mr. Waldron again, or it's going to be really uncomfortable for all of us.
Sure. No, understood.
Peyton, you're a good man for joining us. Ty and I've got a lot of things in common. And one of the things is that we have a lot of cousins that are fine, but their kids are way cooler, way more impressive than the first cousins. So that's the reason we're talking to you today. But no, thanks for doing this, and we've got a lot to get to. So right now, where are you right now?
Yeah, appreciate it. Really excited to be on with both of you guys. So appreciate the opportunity. Calling out of New York City. So I'm based here in Manhattan. Actually calling out of our office where I work, which
What are you
is
doing?
nice. Yeah, quiet spot. So I currently work for a company called Ramp. It's spelled RAMP, just like a ramp, traditional one. It's a fintech startup, so it's in the corporate card expense management space. So been here for about 2 years or so as a account executive or a sales rep.
Nice.
Is that, have you been there? How long did you say?
Been there for 2 years.
Okay.
Prior to that was at Goldman Sachs for a handful of years. So I've kind of shifted over to the world of fintech as opposed to traditional finance.
Okay. And then as somebody in your 20s who obviously was a big time athlete growing up, are you still working out? Are you still playing basketball? What are you doing?
Yeah. I do still try to play as much as possible in just kind of corporate leagues around once a week or so. It's nice to be able to do that, especially in the summer in springtime when it's nice to play outside. But I do try to get out as much as possible.
So you're staying in shape?
As much as I can. Try to mix it up. Basketball definitely helps. It beats just the traditional gym, and then maybe mix in some classes here and there to spice it up a bit.
Like salsa? Like what kind of dance classes? What are you doing?
I've done some yoga classes.
Attaboy. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, done some yoga. Have done some traditional berries classes,
Right.
so treadmill, core stuff. It beats the traditional gym.
Absolutely.
For sure.
When you have played basketball with and against some of the best players in the world, what's it like to play corporate basketball?
Well, as you may have known, I didn't get a ton of time playing for Villanova. I was a walk-on, so I was not at the level of those that are still playing professionally. So I do kind of match a little bit more evenly, I guess I would say, to those in the corporate leagues. But it is fun, and the more consistently I play, the better it is. But no, it's good fun. Keeps me in shape, like you mentioned, and yeah, it's always a good kick to do every once in a while.
So I think we need to set the record straight. Matt retired, but our friend group plays a lot of basketball, right? And I would say the two stars who would be on our Mount Rushmore basketball, right? One of them got cut from his JV team as a freshman. His coach said, I don't need a butterball turkey on my team. And now he's in the most amazing shape ever for a 55-year-old man. And the other one was on varsity, but I don't think he got much time at all. So our reference point is not quite as high as your reference point. So
Peyton, I also think that now's a good time to tell you that my love of basketball was dead. He killed it. He just took it from me, stomped it out. And until you made your run with Villanova, that's what brought me back to basketball. But I haven't played, on the court because someone doesn't like to pass. I'm Charlie Hustle, and Ty's played a lot of basketball. He's got like this tournament we have every summer. It's a 3-on-3 tournament. Ty has played for 31 years. He has 15,750 points and 3 assists. It's amazing. It's amazing.
But all those assists have been since I turned 50, so I feel like
right.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
So let's go way back. When you first started playing sports, what sports did you play?
Yeah, always grew up playing football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and baseball in the spring.
Who got you into basketball?
My mom, actually. So my dad was more of the baseball, football player. My mom was on the basketball side, so I got her skill set I got it from her. Yeah.
You kept playing those sports all through high school?
I played football and basketball in high school. Gave up the baseball to free up some time this spring. So was 2-sport athlete in high school. Yeah.
And did you have to specialize with basketball at all? I mean, was football your side sport, or were they kind of equal?
I would say it was more of a side sport than basketball. Basketball was always my go-to. But I loved playing football. It would obviously take up a lot of the summer. So, yeah, I had more time spent on the basketball court, but a lot of passion and a lot of friends that I played football with, too.
Was there like an AAU team, or how does that work?
Yeah, I played a little bit of AAU at the beginning of high school. I had a bit of a unique situation where I moved states and therefore high schools going into my junior year. So, once I had moved, I kind of switched over to not being an AAU-based guy. Knew I wasn't going to be a scholarship-type player, so went more of just the traditional varsity sport route.
When you kind of came to that realization that you weren't going to be a scholarship player, was that defeating, or you're like, yep, that makes sense? Or, how did you deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, I believed or wanted to get early on in life to being able to play at the college level. I'm 5'10", 5'11" on a good day, so it's pretty hard to get to that aspect, at least at the Division I level in basketball. So I had to pivot, and there were a couple different options, whether it would be at the Division III route and play accordingly from there, or to be a walk-on. And I love Division III. I have a ton of friends that play it. My brother is a Division III football player currently. But I wanted to be a part of a big program. I always wanted to go to Villanova. My dad was an alum. So that kind of was a good fit to be able to have the opportunity to walk on there. And that kind of accomplished my goal, but also, be realistic at the same time.
So I want to get into that this real quick, but 2 things. So obviously your dad's an alum, and then obviously on my side, you've got other legacy, Willie the Leaper, who is an uncle and is probably really what drove you to Villanova, as it did to your father. But talk about that process of being a walk-on. Like, what does that mean? How does that happen? Were there 20 guys that think they're going to walk on, or what's that like?
Yeah. So I came in as what we would call a preferred walk-on. So I did go through somewhat of a recruiting process while in high school. I was from the same location, conference areas. Dante DiVincenzo, who was an incoming freshman, who's now in the NBA. So we had a couple coaches come to the games when I would play Dante, and that kind of confirmed everything from the basketball standpoint. Obviously, I had to get into the school and everything academically, and then had a spot as a practice player coming in as a freshman. So that was a different approach as opposed to just traditionally trying out. We did have tryouts for walk-ons every year, but I did have a spot coming in that summer of freshman year.
So explain to me just a little bit about the basketball process. So you mentioned D3. Are there D2 opportunities? Is D3 better than D2? I know, like in other sports, sometimes D3 is more competitive than D2. Like, and then mid majors. Like, were there other schools you were looking at? You were like, man, I could start here for a couple years.
Yeah. I think D3 led to me. There were a lot of local schools in the D3 area, a lot of good academic schools I was looking at. Hence why I went that route. D2, there more so had to be kind of in that scholarship type range, and I just didn't really fit that bill. So hence why I kind of wanted to go one of the two routes. Had a few other opportunities to either play D3 or even walk onto a lower level D1 school, but Villanova was by far the best program and the best school I wanted to go to. So that was the right fit for me.
So you were all conference in high school, right?
That's correct. Yes.
So you probably didn't leave the court that much, right? So was there any concern that, I imagine most of the teams you were ever on, you played the majority of the game. Were you ever concerned about how you would relate not playing as much?
Yeah. Not really, just kind of going into the role itself. I kind of knew what I was getting into. I had a really good group of walk-ons who were older than me, kind of teach me the ropes and kind of go through that process of almost being like a coach on the court versus being a player. So I knew going into it that I wasn't going to get time. And that's kind of what I signed up for, hence that versus the D3 route. And it was a great fit for me. To be a part of the team and to be participating in practice every day was more than enough. So, it was the right fit for me, and I don't have any regrets.
And then what's the journey from practice player to actually walk on? Is that a big honor to make that elevation?
You have to earn your stripes for sure. So I did it for 2 years at Villanova, but you're still being treated. You're still a walk-on as a practice player. So, you're practicing every day. The only thing different is that you're not traveling and you're not suiting up. So it was kind of a tradition for walk-ons to earn their jersey, earn the right to be on the bench. But it did feel like I was a part of the team from day one on, which was pretty special.
How many people were on the roster?
On the official roster, it's probably anywhere around 15 or so.
And then how many practice players?
It could range anywhere from, say, 1 to 3 at a time.
Okay, so not a ton. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you were like Rudy.
To a degree. I had a couple other Rudies with me, but yeah, you could say that.
So the only problem, Matt, with that reference is that Joe Montana's done some recent interviews, and he's like, that story's not really true. I feel like we're getting the truth here.
Sure.
Like,
I didn't say it was the truth. I'm just going with the movie version of Rudy.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's just everyone pump the brakes. I don't need hate mail from Notre Dame fans everywhere now, because we got a lot of Notre Dame fans out there that are probably watching us.
So Peyton, this is only our 11th podcast, and we've just gotten our first couple sponsors. So a quick shout out to Persian Panther LLC, Chesapeake Orthopedics, and what was the new one today, Matt?
I just signed Trident Capital Partners LLC.
Okay, but Matt's already talking movie deals. We are not guaranteeing you that this is going to lead to a movie deal about your life.
No.
There's no guarantees.
No, I'm just excited to be on, tell a little bit about my story here. So
coach on the court. That's what I want to know about. Coach on the court. What do you mean by that?
Since I'm not spending a ton of time while, in the game, it's learning a lot of the processes that come with being a coach, right? So scouting the other team's plays. So really studying a lot of film, helping out teammates that maybe more so on the younger side that need a little bit more of a guidance and don't get as much of the attention. So, when you're an older player at Villanova, you kind of know the ropes and don't need as much help. But it was kind of a multitude of different ways that I was able to contribute, given I wasn't playing most games.
Right, but you're contributing from the bench, and you would scout and you would see things that are probably happening or about to happen because of your film work. and you can relay that to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. We, as a walk-on group, before every game, will learn the team's most popular plays or most common plays, run it through them during walkthrough, and then obviously shout it out, as you mentioned, when the game's going on.
So let's fast forward. You got kids, say 15 years from now, and some player is being inducted into the NBA
Sure.
Hall of Fame. Can you imagine yourself being like, hey, kids, I was that guy for 2 days in February of 2018? Is there a person on your list that you're like, yep, I remember pretending I was that guy?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. We obviously played some really good teams in my time, so it was kind of funny being, the starting guard at some large Big East team, or Kansas in the Final Four, Michigan in the national championship. So, I never thought of it that way. We've had our own really good stars at Villanova, so I assume a couple of those guys will eventually make it to that prestigious list. But we played against some really good competition too, so it was cool to emulate it.
I don't think we've talked about it, but you were at Villanova from
2016 to 19, essentially.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so in that time, you guys won 2 national championships. So talk about the hardware that you have from that time.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. 2 national championships, one as a practice player, but still felt like part of it. Like
you got
I
the
mentioned,
ring, right?
Yep. We had a multitude of Big East championships, 3 straight Big East tournament championships, which has never been done in the history of the Big East. And the title in 2018 was pretty special too, when I was a junior. So pretty successful run. A lot of great guys that came through along with it. And I was there at a pretty good peak
so
season.
Were you upset this summer when you were the only member of that time that was not on the Knicks? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah.
I personally was upset for you. I was like waiting to see that come across the wire.
Yeah, as a Sixers fan too, it's a little tough to see. But no, I think it's pretty awesome that they're all playing together and being so successsul.
Ty doesn't really follow professional basketball, so tell him who was on that team. You said Vincent, Jalen.
Yeah, DiVincenzo was on the team last year. Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges is now new to the team this year, and Josh Hart is a great staple. Another guy, Ryan Arcidiacono, played for the Knicks last year as well, and has had a really great NBA career. He was a really good mentor of mine. He was a senior when I was a freshman. So, a lot of guys that have come and gone, but also still with the Knicks today.
Crazy.
So at that level of basketball, there's so much talent, so many great teams. Do you have any insight into the secret sauce that makes a team a championship team?
Yeah, I think every team, every program is different. So Jay Wright and now Kyle Neptune, who's the new coach who was an assistant when I was there, has kind of kept the same culture, which is awesome to see as an alum. But, what worked for us was a system of guys staying there for multiple years, learning the system. Our mantra was the word attitude. So having a really positive attitude, regardless of the call, whether good or bad. And, that was a real cool thing and process to be a part of. There's a bunch of other kind of mottos and mantras that we live by, but we did really live it. So I think what really differentiated us, though, was the fact that we didn't have one and done guys that would come in and year out. We had a full process that you really learned the system. And then once you were an upperclassman, then you really, flourish from there.
Then talk about that network, that team mentality post-college, right? I mean, there's a network and there's probably a bonding there that never goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. I still keep in touch with a lot of guys today in a fantasy football league with a bunch of them. I've already been to a couple of weddings of some older folks the past couple of years. So the bond truly does not go away. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It really does lead to a much better work ethic and way of going about things in the professional world, once basketball's over.
So but also about the one and done. I'm guessing just from your those comments, I've got your feel about the NIL and the world of college sports right now.
Yeah.
Do you think the days of like the run you guys had from 2016 all the way up to 18 is kind of over because guys are in and out of schools all the time so much?
Yeah, no, it's definitely changed and adjusted. I mean, Villanova's adjusted with it as well, and I think you have to in order to stay with the times and stay relevant and maintain the best talent. I think it's still being figured out. I'm by no means an expert in the space, but yeah, I think it's an adjustment to figure out what works, right? What works for each program? How does that work when it comes to a certain fund and dispersing across the team versus giving certain NIL deals to certain players? So it remains to be seen, but it's definitely here to stay. I think it's for the better. I mean, these players are generating ridiculous amounts of revenue for the school, so they should be compensated accordingly.
I hear you.
So to get into a little bit of the process as a student athlete, where you're probably in college thinking about a career, where some of your teammates are thinking about a basketball career, you're thinking about a get out there and work career. Mm-hmm. What was it? I mean, basketball's super busy. You're on the road all the time. How was that process staying up with your schoolwork, graduating, all that stuff?
Yeah.
Well, let me just hop in because I know Peyton well enough that he's not going to brag, but you did make all Big East all academic teams a couple times. I mean, he really put the work in on the court and then off the court as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And again, that's from your mother's side. So
yeah, definitely from that side of the family. But no, it was definitely an adjustment. I'll say that for sure. I think coming in, practice every day was kept like a really good regimen of keeping me busy. I think with a lot of college kids, it's coming up with a hobby or multiple of hobbies or clubs that will keep you engaged, right? And therefore, funny enough, despite having all that time, it actually makes you focus more on school. For me personally, when I was on the team as a roster player in my junior year, to your point, Ty, I traveled a lot more and hence had less time. So it was definitely an adjustment, but you make time to get the work done when you can, whether it's on the plane, in the hotel. And our team was really accommodating with that, with professors and making sure we got ahead of it. But it definitely took some time. And then once you get used to it, it's a little bit easier.
Did they have any programs in college that maybe you got to be a part of for life after basketball?
Yeah, so on the academic side, we did have like a team of support staff to help kind of manage everything from projects and things like that. And then when it came to life after basketball, I was a part of the Villanova Business School, so they had some really good career service resources to help for life after, for me, basketball, but for everyone, school altogether. So there was both the sports side of the house that kind of helped, as well as the school I was a part of at Villanova as well.
And then this is kind of, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. We talk about some orthopedic issues. Yeah. I'm curious about like the fitness aspect of beyond basketball, like preparing your body. I'm imagining you're still doing the same stuff that the guys who are putting in tons of minutes are doing. And also what the nutritional part is. And then even the sleep part, because you're probably flying at all sorts of crazy hours. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I have a much easier sleep regimen now these days. But we actually had a really great strength and conditioning coach who also was our team nutritionist. So I got the best setup when it came to my time at Villanova, because I was eating good food, but it was also really healthy, and I was working out and doing it consistently and staying in shape. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Definitely try to keep some of those same kind of workout regimens and stick to the same type of food groups. So yeah, that's definitely stayed with me from after the fact that I graduated.
And like, what kind of like meal plan would that be? Like lots of fruits and vegetables and protein, or did they realize you guys were kids and you're like, oh, it's Pizza Wednesday? Like, how did they do it?
It was pretty strict. Nothing, no cheat meals ever. We had pretty much every meal, due to like NCAA policy, we're able to have meals after every practice, especially when we're traveling too. So no, our strength and conditioning coach did not allow for any pizza, French fries, ice cream, anything like that. So we kind of got the message loud and clear early on, and it didn't change from there. But honestly, we were unique in the space. There are a lot of really good teams out there where they had guys that could eat whatever they wanted. It didn't matter to some, but for us, it kind of gave us a little bit of an edge.
Do you think other teams will catch up to that? Like, that just seems like you're playing that many games, even though you think that you're young, but that many games to be proper nutrition and proper hydration, that seems like that could be the difference between national championship and out in the first round.
I mean, to go alongside that is rest. You mentioned it, like you're going to be traveling a ton. Once the NCAA tournament kicked, I think that was really the reason why we've made so many good runs over the past couple of years, is how regimented we were. So waking up, having breakfast, film, break, go back, take a nap, come back, walk through, more film, lunch. So it was definitely kept us on schedule, and to your point, gave us a little bit of an inch there against the competition.
So, Peyton, do you think you were a student athlete, or were you a student who obviously got to play a varsity sport? You know what I mean? That, like, is there a difference between the two? And, how do you see yourself, or when you look back at that? Were you there for athletics, or, I mean, you obviously were there for the academics. You could have gone to just about it, where you wanted, but you wanted that, as you said.
Sure.
So how'd that work out for you?
Good question. I still consider myself to be a student athlete just due to the sheer sake of time that I had put in. It was my full-time job, right?
Right.
It was a lot of time and effort, but it still kept me sharp when it came to getting the schoolwork done. And, one strong lesson I learned from my mom actually when I was there was, it's not just going to completely define you. You want to be able to have other things that you're a part of. So I was able to still, have friends outside of the team. I was a part of an executive committee for an annual fundraiser to a local charity that we raise money for. So I still stayed active across like the Villanova community. But at the end of the day, like, basketball was coming first, if not 1B to schoolwork. So that being said, everyone does have enough time to do something outside of sport and school. You just got to make it.
You're talking about balancing the work, basketball, school schedule. What was it like having like family members that were basically like jock sniffs, who would basically follow you around? And I'm not talking about like your dad, your brother, your sister, but like, I don't know, I'm going to say uncles that really, really, got on board with the Villanova teams.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them. We did have a pretty good run. So it's not crazy that people were rooting for the team, and it was awesome to have everyone be a part of it that participated or even just watched from home. So it was pretty cool to be able to have like more family come. You're able to have tickets be able to pass on to your family and friends. So it was cool to get people to come to games and things like that, and travel across the different years.
So Ty, when you're a senior and you're a member of the Villanova basketball team, on every game they'll put a senior's picture or two seniors' pictures on a ticket. Yeah. And so we went to Peyton's senior game, and it's on our fridge right now, his ticket, and I can't believe I didn't bring it down here with me to the studio. But the whole family was there, and my kids at the time were all, in grade school, and we watched the Villanova games, and anytime we saw it, the girls would go nuts, and it was awesome. And when you guys won, I like took a picture of the screen when you were on there with Gus Johnson and stuff like that, and said to you, it was just cool. And you're right, it got everybody involved, so it was a great time to watch you kind of live that out and live vicariously through you. So
Yeah.
thanks. Good work. Appreciate that.
Oh yeah, it was pretty cool, and my immediate family too had to travel a ton. So that one year that you're mentioning, 2018, we went from New York in the Big East tournament to Pittsburgh to Boston to San Antonio, and my family was there every step of the way. So they were pretty awesome to travel accordingly, and it was a special moment to share it with.
Absolutely.
So with your basketball career in its entirety, so not just Villanova, but high school, everything, did you have some mentors along the way that you feel like the lessons they taught you are still helping you today as you're moving forward with your life?
Yeah. I had some coaches growing up that were really great. Actually kept in touch with a few of them that would go to some of my Villanova games. So that was pretty awesome to have them still involved and still be in touch with them today. Jay Wright's an easy one when it comes to Villanova specifically. We still keep in touch, and I see him once, twice, 3 times a year. So it's still pretty frequent at different events, games, and things like that. But I mentioned it earlier, a lot of the mantras that we had were very easy to emulate into day-to-day life today. So it's good to kind of keep that top of mind, and it was drilled into my brain every practice, every day. So it's definitely helped me, once I left Villanova.
So when you get into the career world, I'm imagining when you were going through the interview process, it kind of opened some doors to be like, yeah, I was a student athlete at Villanova. They see your GPA, they see your major, and you go on a national championship basketball team. That opens doors. But once the doors open, you got to make your own way, correct?
Yeah, no, definitely. Out of college, I was really lucky to get the opportunity to actually first intern at Goldman Sachs, and then I came back as a full-time employee the fall or summer after I graduated. So that's where I got my foot in the door, to your point. But from there, the work starts and the work begins. So I was there for a handful of years, really enjoyed my time, learned a ton about just the workforce, the industry in general, was in kind of like a institutional sales role there. And I pivoted to more of the world of fintech and have become a little bit more of a self-starter. So that was a really good transition for me, but also I still take a lot of the skills that I learned over my first couple of years at Goldman still today.
So as you just said, self-starter, and that's what got you do so well as your role on the Villanova team. Do you look for that, like the teamwork aspect, as you went from Goldman to Ramp or to other ventures? I mean, how much of that is now ingrained in you that you're like, this is what I thrive in, this is what I need?
Definitely. I think I'll just give you an example. Like when I transitioned to Ramp, I went through a whole process of what I wanted to do next. I know I wanted to do something sort of in the startup world and also in the tech space. And with Ramp, though, when I joined, it was probably around 500 employees. So it wasn't, say, a 10-person startup. There was a really good group of camaraderie, a lot of other ex-athletes out there, and then also had a great product and backing of the company itself. So those kind of checked a lot of boxes for me. And when I went through the interview process, it was kind of like a home run. So those were definitely huge components in my decision.
So some of those things that maybe you got from sports, like being around mentors, being around a team, how do you think maybe college kids who aren't athletic enough to be on the Villanova basketball team, how do you think they can recreate some of those things, whether it's in the summer or like, do you have any friends you're like, that guy did it right? Like he got some experience in college more than just going to class, or girl.
Yeah. I think it could go for student athletes or not, Division I, Division III or not. I think you have more of a platform to dedicate your time specifically to the sport when you're playing one, right? As opposed to not playing at all. And that kind of does help in a degree, but it is harder, right? Like I mentioned, my brother, he's a football player and he's up, at 5 a.m. every morning running in the cold there. So,
where's he at school? So we can give him a shout out.
Yeah, his name's Gavin Heck. He is a football player at Dickinson College. So it's in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he also has a sister who doesn't really do much. She really doesn't bring a lot to the party, does she?
Nah, she's definitely the most impressive of the three of us.
Maddie's
also
the best.
Villanova alum. Yeah, she went to Villanova, graduated with a much higher GPA than I did, and works at NBC now. So she's killing it herself. And to that point, right? My sister didn't play a sport, but she was active in lots of other areas, and I think it's just coming up with a game plan on how you want to use your time. I think it's very easy for someone in college to waste that time away or not really know what to do with it. And I'll shout out my mom one more time. Like she mentioned, like the idea of it's basic, you only have college for 4 years and you better make the most of it. So, you only get one shot at it. And for me, it was best to be able to be, part of the basketball team and things like that. But, for others, it could be a club, it could be a intramural team, it could be a charity, it could be a sorority, fraternity, something like that. So make sure you're making the most of it while you're there.
So your sister went to Villanova also?
She did, yeah. So we did cross paths, actually. She was a freshman when I was a senior. So 1 year we had together.
And I know people are going to ask me this. What are some of her big activities that she did in college?
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, she was involved with Special Olympics, which was like a big deal at Villanova. I think it was like the largest community based in the US actually. So she was a part of that. She was also part of a sorority at Villanova. She participated in some club and intramural sports as well. So yeah, she was very active as well. And it's been, deemed successful as well as she was also a econ major, multiple different minors, I think in English and something else I'm forgetting. So she was active in the classroom as well.
Okay. So this is something I always notice is you have been around some incredible athletes, right? Some great athletes. So you are very well aware of the difference between, say, all conference and high school, and then somebody who gets a lottery pick in the NBA, right? There's a wide difference there.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people in society don't understand that. There's a lot of people out there being like, well, if I was 6'4", I'd be in the NBA. Or if I was, 230 pounds, I'd be a linebacker in the NFL. And you're like, well, but at 5'10", you would have been the starter on your high school basketball team. If that's, do you notice that in the world where people just don't understand? And I would imagine you probably have a front seat to that.
Yeah. I think there's some people that are a bit naive to it. And I will shout out those guys that I played with. Like it is a grind, right? They are absolutely putting more time and more effort, on the side to be able to meet their goal of being a professional basketball player while being a student at Villanova. So, and that's not the case at other schools. So like huge props to them. And to your point, yeah, it's maybe not as well known more broadly, but I think when you meet people that actually know what the real deal is and how much it entails, like I mentioned, I've ran a lot of former student athletes, whether they were playing or they were walk-ons like me too, they kind of get the deal. And that goes a long way too. To kind of get what the real gist of it is.
So because Matt always says to me, I'm 6'3", and Matt's always like, if I was 6'3", I would have been Michael Jordan. So he even shaved his head to look like Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
and
true.
I just disagree with them. I think that's not true. I think it takes more than just being tall.
Not me. Because I've got ups, I've got will, I've got that killer instinct. So I probably would have been.
It's true.
It's just the height that kept me down. But I'm still taller than Peyton's dad. That's all that matters.
Hey, height is a big factor. But work ethic is too. So if Matt, you have it, then maybe you could have been MJ.
So then what other sports do you play now? Are you playing any golf or anything like that?
Yeah, I play some golf as much as I can. It's kind of hard here in the city, living in New York. I'll play some pickleball. Actually, it's kind of fun to play in the city as well, even on some hard courts, which is nice. And then I'll do some intramurals with some friends, just kind of mix up the week. I think I did like a kickball league in the spring and a volleyball league in the fall. Yeah, I know it's a little unique, but yeah, it's something new.
Is
Yeah.
there anything when you go to play, pick up basketball, intramural basketball, where you have a little bit of a target on you?
Well,
Like,
because
do
he wears his
people-
championship ring. He goes out there. That's probably why.
Yeah, usually the opposite. If it's the first time I'm playing them, they'll probably just take a look at me and think I'm a traditional guy. But once a couple of shots go in, maybe they'll guard me a little closer. So, yeah, that's typically how it goes.
I just think I think that's one of my favorite things is when somebody just or underestimates you and have no idea you're just a regular guy out there who works in New York, and then after you've scored 10 points in the first couple minutes, they're like, oh, I didn't know that about him. I just It's like the kid who shows up to a golf course wearing Chuck Taylors and then breaks the course record.
Right, exactly. So
Hey,
you
now,
get used to it.
Did you have to deal with any injuries, when you were in college?
Thankfully not. I got pretty lucky. I did have a buddy of mine who I did walk on with, and he tore his ACL, for instance. So that's pretty brutal. And it is that is a daunting injury, for instance.
Was he able to come back from the ACL and still be a practice player, or is that done when you're a practice player?
Yeah, good question. He was a walk on then. It was actually a senior year, so he was kind of unfortunately called from there. But still a part of the team, still involved in everything you can. And we had guys throughout my time that were scholarship players as well that would be rehabbing throughout. We try to get them back as quick as possible. And then if it was a larger injury, then the next year. And that was actually a big part of the walk-ons' responsibility, whether if they were injured or redshirting to work them out one-on-one as well. So we did have our fair share of that too.
So is that like practice before practice or while you're at practice?
Usually after practice or before a game. So, yeah, there were a lot of time built in when it came to everything basketball related, not just practice. We would have workouts afterwards, film. You mentioned travel, so a lot goes into it for sure.
So it's a full-time job. You're playing basketball all the time, and they give you good food.
Now it's good for you. It did taste well too. So they didn't leave us out to dry, but like we mentioned, it did pay off in the long run.
You're a Sixers fan. Do you have a English soccer team that you like?
I do. So you mentioned it. My dad actually works for a team in the EPL, Aston Villa. So I'm now a diehard fan, but only began about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I will say I am not an Eagles fan. So
I know.
No worries there. I'm a big Commanders fan. Kept that going with the family.
Attaboy.
So they're on the up and up. So I have to shout them out.
Ty pretended like he was, then he dropped them, and he's never come back.
In my defense,
no, you don't have a. We have to go. We have to go now.
In my defense, I was raised in a mixed marriage of my dad's family was Redskins fans, my wife's family was Baltimore Colts fans, then Ravens fans, and the Ravens have been a little bit better recently, and Matt just doesn't understand it.
No, I'm diehard. You stay true, right, Peyton? You pick your team, you ride them out. Ride or die.
So how about you're playing at Augusta, and you can take three people. Who's your dream foursome?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'll go with my dad, my brother, and I'll go with Max Homa. He's my favorite golfer, so I need someone in there to actually help me out while I'm out on the course. So
I like that.
That'll be the threesome or foursome.
That's solid.
That is
Yeah.
really solid. All right. If tonight's it. Tonight's your last dinner. What's your last meal?
I'm going sushi all the way. Definitely
Sushi.
my favorite food. Lots of good spots in the city, so I've developed that craving. So all you can eat sushi would be my go-to.
Did Villanova ever give you sushi as like a pregame or postgame meal?
They did, yeah. They'd have sushi night before the game, so maybe that was where I got my kick.
Okay. And then do you have like a movie or movie scene that you find particularly motivational? So like what would be your pregame movie to pump you up?
Yeah. I won't give a movie, but I will say this to answer your question, because I would watch this video, and it was basically a clip of a U.S. Navy member speaking. He gave a commencement speech at the University of Texas, and he wrote a book that I actually wrote, and I forget the title of it, but
And was it Make
essentially,
Your Bed?
yes,
Make Your Bed or
Make Your
something?
Bed.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and basically he talks through, basically all the different factors of, what it means to be a winner and things like that. And it was a pretty motivational, speech that I would get pumped up to before every game.
That's solid. That is really good. That I'm pumped up now.
I recommend it. Definitely watch one of those YouTube clips. They got some motivational music in the background. So, it'll get you excited for sure.
Do you have a favorite book that you read in 2024 or no time to read?
Ooh, none's jumping out to me. I do have, though, on my to-do list, Scott Galloway's book. He's a guy I listen to. He actually was a speaker that I listened to. He spoke at one of our town halls when I was at Goldman, and he had a really interesting viewpoint on just kind of like the young male perspective, and also just kind of economics altogether. So I have that on my bookshelf that I haven't started. So that'll be a to-do list for 2025.
Nice.
And then another, not what a question like this, but it's a question I meant to ask. For a 3-sport athlete like you were, right? So say you're talking to a 7th grader who is a 3-sport athlete. Maybe they're thinking about dropping one to concentrate on something. With basketball, only 12 guys make the team. Only 5 start. Only 7 to 8 maybe get a lot of playing time. Versus like a football team where there's 22 starters. Probably, maybe 25, 26 play a lot. Some people might go both ways, but what advice would you have to those kids if they're making the jump towards basketball versus some of these other sports where there might be more opportunities?
Yeah. I'd say stick with multiple sports as much as you can. I think for me, only 2 was the best bet. I don't think you have to do 3, but I think doing more than 1 is extremely helpful to alleviate the stress a little bit from your main sport. But also you can work similar muscles and skill sets in another that will translate to your main sport. So, I think there's also burnout, especially at, say, a younger age, if you just stick to 1. So, I'm very relieved that I didn't just stick with basketball, and it made me, also develop really good relationships, at least in high school. I mentioned I had a lot of close friends that I'm still close to today, and none of them played basketball. So I played football with them, and, that really helped develop that relationship as well.
What position did you play in football?
I played cornerback, and I played wide receiver, like a slot receiver.
And did you consider playing that in college at all?
No, I don't think I was too good enough there. Not like my brother. My brother hit a lot harder and was a lot stronger, so he was more meant for it. But it was still good to be a part of that team, and nothing like high school football.
And then, do you ever think you'd get involved in coaching basketball?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think at a high competitive level, like at the college level, it is a common path for those who were walk-ons to go that route. I have some friends now that are in coaching that I walked on with, but I would absolutely get into whether if it was at the high school level or maybe, one of my kids' teams going down the line. I definitely enjoy it, And like we talked about, having that walk-on experience does like crack that itch a little bit to coach. So I can definitely see that further down the line.
So your friends that are going into it in the big time level, what is that like at your age? I imagine it's not super stable.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute grind. When we talk about time, it's nonstop, whether it's scouting, recruiting, and it's year round. So there's no breaks, there's no vacations, there's no time off. And you're also bouncing a lot from school to school. So I actually have a colleague of mine at Ramp who played at Sacred Heart. He was a Division I player. He actually played professionally for a little bit. He was a star athlete. Coached for a few years at Lehigh, and then actually came over to Ramp not too long ago. So it is a grind. Now, if you make it out, it's very rewarding. But it wasn't for me. That being said, people I'm close to are doing it day in and day out, and they do love it. So if you're passionate about it, then there's definitely room there to blossom.
That's awesome. Peyton, you're the man. I appreciate you doing this. T, do you have anything else for him?
Oh, that was super fun.
It really was. I got a lot out of it.
My last thing I'm going to say, so when you were in a family and your cousins are the Waldrons, right? And you probably around, I guess, 5 or 6, you probably realized you could probably beat Pete and Matt in basketball by yourself. Like, what kind of confidence does that give you that you can beat these two grown men who actually look athletic? Pete and Matt are both pretty athletic. Pete played college lacrosse, but when you knew that you could dribble all around them, like, you must have thought at the time, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in the NBA by the time I'm 18.
Yeah. I had definitely a feeling of that for sure. Same thing with my dad too. Like, once I got old enough, I think he stopped playing me one-on-one. But I also reached probably my physical peak in 8th grade, beginning of college. And then I knew that the scholarship route wasn't for me. But yeah, it was pretty fun growing up and being able to show my skills.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for doing this with us. This was great.
It was really good.
Thank you for having me.
Buddy,
awesome.
you're the man. I really do appreciate it. Good seeing you.